Captain Marcus Webb had always believed space was loud, engines roaring, metal groaning, humans shouting orders. But tonight, aboard the UES Vanguard, the bridge was silent enough to hear a heartbeat. His dot, the stars outside, shimmered like distant promises, and Webb stared at them with quiet awe. All this, he whispered under his breath, can't be just random chance. He didn't notice the junior officer watching him, Elena Ruiz, his communications specialist who smiled faintly at the captain's soft habit of speaking to the cosmos. It was almost peaceful. Then her console screamed. A cascading wave of signals flooded the bridge. Strange pulses. Unknown mathematics. Distorted holographic frames. Ruiz jolted upright, fingers flying across controls. Captain, this isn't background noise. It's a transmission. From somewhere outside our mapped space. Webb stood so quickly, his chair slammed the deck plating. Origin. Ruiz swallowed, eyes wide. Coordinates do not exist in our star charts. She hesitated. They didn't, until now. The message partially translated itself, patterns resolving into visuals, worlds turning gray, cities collapsing, black organic fleets, swallowing planets whole. Every officer watching felt a chill crawl down their spine. Lieutenant Harris crossed himself. Webb didn't comment, but he placed a hand briefly on the man's shoulder. Fear made belief surface, and there was something comforting about thinking someone might be watching back. Ruiz's voice trembled as she translated. We seek aid. Our civilizations fall. They consume us. If you hear this, help us. Please. Webb exhaled slowly. Aliens. Real. Intelligent. Begging, he looked again at the visuals of entire planets being devoured. He thought of Earth, of his sister laughing oceanside, his mother's prayers before every launch. If monsters like that reached Sol, forward message to Earth Council, Webb ordered, voice steady, and get Admiral Chen on secured channel. The council room buzzed with questions, fear, disbelief. Webb stood among admirals and officials as the holograms replayed the horrors. That could be us, someone whispered. Admiral Sarah Chen cleared her throat. The room hushed. They asked for help. A senator scoffed. We barely have reliable FTL. We fight with bullets and metal. They show weaponry we can't comprehend. Why would they come to us? Webb spoke up, eyes locked on the Ravager ships in the recording. Maybe because we never stop fighting, not even when we should. The room murmured. Chen nodded. Humanity has spent its entire existence battling death. Our home world tries to kill us every day. We learned persistence, adaptation, survival, and faith, Webb added quietly. Several heads turned. He shrugged lightly. It's what kept many of us alive on Earth. Chen stepped beside him, voice sharp with resolve. We answer the call, shouts erupted. You can't be serious. This is suicide. We help strangers while our families sit undefended. Webb slammed a hand against the table. If that swarm eats through their galaxy, Earth is next. A silence engulfed the room. Chen pointed at the message replaying above them. Entire planets erased. You want to wait until that arrives on our doorstep? The vote was inevitable. Humanity would go. Webb watched his crew scramble with sudden purpose. Marines trained harder. Engineers reinforced armor. Pilots simulated new formations. Ruiz approached him cautiously, sir. Are you afraid? Webb looked toward Earth, glowing beyond the glass. If I said no, I'd be lying. She nodded. But fear isn't what stops us, he added. It's what tells us what matters, he whispered, almost like a prayer not intended to be heard. Someone put us here. Maybe to answer. Proximity alarm sounded. A new signal. Stronger. Closer. Ruiz paled. Captain. They're responding to our message back. Webb straightened, pulse hammering. What does it say? Her eyes flickered with disbelief. They are coming. The ones begging for help are terrified. What kind of monsters are we going to face? The engines of the UES Vanguard hummed with barely contained power. Every hallway pulsed with urgency. Humanity had never mobilized so fast, and Captain Marcus Webb felt the pressure of every second. Orders streamed across his display, fleet merging. Ammunition counts, distress updates from the alien coalition. Webb stared at the tactical projections in disbelief. Entire civilizations were burning. "Alina," he called without looking up. "Status of communication with the Alien Council?" Lieutenant Alina Ruiz quickly straightened. "Direct link ready, sir." "They're waiting." Her face was composed, calm, sharp, professional, but Webb saw the flicker of nerves in her dark eyes. She was strong. Stronger than half the Marines. Yet even she could feel the weight of the unknown. "Open channel," he said. The hologram projected into the bridge, crystalline beings in sweeping chambers. Smaller creatures with terrified eyes, some glowing merely to speak, but all of them unified by fear. The council seemed fragile. Too fragile. Ambassador Throkin, shimmering and multifaceted, spoke first. "Captain Webb of Earth. You came?" Webb nodded once. "We received the call. We don't leave people to die in the dark." The ambassador hesitated, his facets dimming. "We feared you would ignore us. You evolved on a death world. You are warriors. Why help us?" Marcus paused. The question was genuine, almost childlike. He thought of his mother's voice. Strength is given for a purpose. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. "We know what it means to be outmatched," Webb said quietly. "We survived because someone or something wanted us to. Call it chance. Call it a blessing. But now we're here to return the favor," the council murmured. Webb caught Alina watching him discreetly. Pride in her expression, like she had known he would say something like that. Later in the weapons bay, engineers worked like ants on metal giants, railguns, missile pods, kinetic artillery. Sergeant Miller grinned at Webb as sparks rained from a welding arc. "Sir, I think we might finally get to use those railgun upgrades Command kept insisting were unnecessary." Webb smirked. "You complaining, Sergeant?" "Complaining? Sir, with all due respect, I've been waiting my whole life to punch something ugly in the face at Mach 20. Laughter broke the tension for a moment, steel brief. But relieving Alina showed up with a datapad. "Reinforcement numbers updated. We'll have over 100 ships." 100? Miller snorted. "Council expects us to save a galaxy with that." Webb stepped between them. "We're not saving the galaxy," he said. "We're just giving monsters a reason to hesitate." Alina's eyes met his. The unspoken meaning lingered. Humanity doesn't run. Hours before departure, Webb stood alone at the observation window. Earth gleamed below, blue, bright, alive. He pressed his palm against the cold glass. "Don't worry," he whispered. "We'll keep you safe." He wasn't sure who he was speaking to, Earth or someone beyond it. Soft footsteps approached. "Alina, you talk to stars a lot," she said gently. He didn't respond immediately. Then, "It feels like someone should be listening." She didn't laugh. Instead, she moved to stand beside him, hands folded behind her back, matching his stance. Not touching, but close enough that he could feel her warmth. "You're not alone." "Captain," she said. Those simple words steadied him more than armor ever could. A chime interrupted. FTL jump. Countdown. 15 minutes. Webb exhaled, turning back to duty Alina. "Whatever happens out there, we'll face it," she said. Together. No physical closeness. No dramatic declarations. Just trust. And trust was stronger. They gathered on the bridge as Webb opened a channel to all ships. "This is Captain Marcus Webb. Out there, people are fighting for survival. We're going to stand beside them." He paused only a heartbeat, but the entire fleet leaned in. "Hold the line. Come home proud." Webb out. Engines charged. Space warped. Humanity leaped into the unknown. But the unknown was already waiting. And it was hungry. The universe looked different after a faster-than-light jump. Like reality hadn't fully decided what shape to take yet. As the stars steadied, alarms immediately flared across the Vanguard's bridge, multiple signatures inbound. Alina called out, fingers racing across her console. Not council. Something else. Webb's jaw tightened. Ravagers. No visuals yet, but their drive signatures are biological. She shivered at that single word. A nightmarish silhouette emerged from the dark, a ship shaped like a leech fused with a weapon. Its hull pulsed. Like it was breathing, Webb forced calm into his voice. All hands battle stations. Oh. Crew scrambled. Engineers sealed blast doors. Marines loaded magazines. The ship became a living heartbeat of tension. A communication alert blinked. Ruiz opened the channel, then frowned. No language. Only frequencies. Like sonar, mixed with... She swallowed. Screaming, Webb stared at the monstrous vessel. Something inside him whispered that this creature did not conquer for territory or power. It devoured because that was all it knew. Target locked, the weapons officer reported. Waiting on your go, sir? Webb's finger hovered over the authorization pad. This is how humanity meets its first enemy, he murmured. Sir. Alina asked softly. He squared his shoulders. We shoot, fire. The Vanguard's primary railguns thundered, the deck shuddering. Hyperdense slugs tore through the void, slamming into the Ravager hull. The creature ship rippled, black armor peeling back like flesh. A cloud of gray spores vented into space, drifting like ash from a corpse. The bridge cheered. But inside Webb, unease churned. That was too easy. Sensors flashed dozens of new contacts, then hundreds. The entire starfield behind them began to move, like a swarm of living nightmares. Brace. Webb shouted. The first volley struck, organic harpoons slamming into their armor plates. The Vanguard rocked violently, lights flickering, metal screamed. Crew fell. Deck for breach. Auto seals failing. Ravager boarding pods attaching. Alina grabbed her chair to stay upright, eyes wild. They're boring into us. Webb didn't hesitate. All Marines, repel boarders. Bridge lock weapons to close quarters mode. He fired orders and questions simultaneously. Engineering? Status? Trying to keep power steady? Radiation surges everywhere. Comes Alina. Trying to push a distress ping. Signal as a Ravager projectile punched through a bulkhead panel near her station. Webb lunged, not to touch her, but to shield her path as she dove to the floor. Are you hit? No, I'm fine, she said breathlessly. Then she looked at him differently, as if the universe had just shrunk to the space between them. He offered a tight nod and returned to command. No time for more. Another violent shake. Backup lighting bathed the bridge in. Read they were being consumed. A Marine squad. Patch flickered into view on a bridge. Monitor helmet cams broadcasting the nightmare. Below, Ravagers burst through metal like it was. Foil limbs serrated, jaws unhinging. Marines fought tooth and bullet. Every impact, brutal and personal. One Marine, Corporal Hayes, was dragged by two beasts, deeper into a smoky corridor. His body cam spun wildly, views swinging between claws and dark. Hayes screamed. Hit someone, anyone. God, please, gunfire echoed. Hayes' feed cut out. Elena's voice cracked. We can't hold at this rate. Webb closed his eyes for only a second. Not a prayer, but something like one. Let me make the right call. He opened his eyes steel. We won't die quietly. He slammed his hand onto the tactical screen. All railguns aimed down. Punch holes through our own lower decks. The bridge froze. Sir, Marines are still, and if we don't, there won't be a ship left to save. He didn't flinch. Fire. Steel roared. Deck plating ruptured, taking with it dozens of Ravagers that had overrun the corridors. The bridge fell silent, horror and relief. Intertwining like smoke, Alina looked at him. Not with fear, but with trust. The swarm hadn't come to test them. It came to learn them. To adapt. To evolve, and now. It knew exactly what humanity tasted like. Smoke rolled through the lower decks like a living thing, swallowing lights and bodies alike. The Vanguard groaned under the strain, metal fighting not to fold. Captain Marcus Webb stormed into the Marine staging bay. Marines snapped to attention, even amidst chaos, sir. You're needed on the bridge, Sergeant Miller began. I'm needed where the ship bleeds, Webb countered, snapping a rifle from a weapons rack. We pushed them back. Now. Miller grinned, despite the nightmare they were living. Aye, sir. About time you joined the fun. No speeches. No hesitation, just war. Bulkhead doors hissed open, revealing a corridor torn in half, flesh-laced metal pulsing like a wound. Ravagers scrambled along walls and ceilings, shrieking. Marines opened fire, controlled bursts. Webb moved with practiced grace, calm in chaos. Every shot lethal. Every order precise. A Ravager lunged, teeth like broken glass. Webb sidestepped, driving his rifle butt into its skull. Bone cracked, black eye core spraying. Another leapt fast. Too fast, Webb barely saw the blur bang. The creature dropped midair. Elena Ruiz stood behind him, trembling but unbroken. Hush. Emergency pistol smoking in her grip. You, he started. She squared her shoulders. You said we face it together, voice shaking. Resolve iron. He allowed himself half a heartbeat of relief. Then stay close. As they advanced, Ravager tactics shifted. Before, they rushed wildly. Now, they flanked, ambushed, targeted weaknesses. Miller cursed. They're adapting to our fire. Faster than before, chilling realization hit Webb. The first wave was never meant to win. It was meant to study. They're learning us, Webb muttered. Our angles. Our weapons. Elena glanced at him, fear flickering. Our instincts? Ravager's screech echoed through the ship, deeper, resonant. Not random. Coordinated. A. Command? Everyone fall back to choke point Bravo. Webb barked. They reversed into a narrow passage. One firing line. One kill zone. He slammed a hand on a bulkhead control panel, sealing the rear hatches. They waited silence then. They came. Like a tidal wave of teeth and claws. Rail rifles and shotguns thundered. Ravagers piled atop each other, tearing into their own to reach the Marines. Their eyes cold, calculating, never left the humans. A clawed limb got through, ripping Miller's helmet off. The sergeant staggered, dazed. Elena cried out, Miller. Webb grabbed the creature's mandible, straining with raw force. Not today. He jammed a combat knife up through its throat. It spasmed, then fell limp. Miller gasped a shaky laugh. Thanks, boss. Webb gripped his shoulder. A quick pressure, supportive, commanding, then released. We're not done yet. Suddenly, every screen flickered on. Bridge feeds hijack day. A distorted voice like a whisper made of metal scraping teeth filled the Vanguard. You are good flesh. Good fight. We will adapt. To you, Elena froze, breath hitched. It continued. Pray, if you have, God. You will need him. Static snapped. The screens died. Webb stood motionless, heart hammering. They were listening, understanding. Mocking, Miller spit on the deck. Let them come. We'll show them what prayer looks like. But Webb, he felt something deeper. Not just fear. A promise inside that fear. We survive for a reason. He looked up, as though staring through steel into the cosmos itself. Someone put us here to fight, he whispered. Elena's eyes softened. Not fear now. Faith in him. Engineers' voices crackled through, comes breathless, hopeful. Captain, forward decks secure. We're pushing them back. The Marines roared. Humanity held. For now, the Ravagers were finished testing. The real hunt was just beginning. The Vanguard emerged from the debris field, battered but unbowed. Fires were contained. Hull breaches sealed. Medics worked in shifts, treating radiation burns and shredded armor. But the bridge was alive with determination. Ravager vessels are withdrawing to regroup, Lena reported. Still typing with adrenaline-shaken hands? They'll be back, Webb replied. Sooner than we want. He turned his attention to the holographic projection forming above the center platform, a live council broadcast. Dozens of alien representatives stared at him through shimmering feeds. Their expressions ranged from awe to horror towering an insectoid, chittered sharply, Deathworld Captain, you survived. Those things? Webb kept his stance firm. Even through a hologram, he could feel their fear. We survived, he said coldly. Because we learned a long time ago that fear doesn't excuse surrender. The council chamber devolved into panicked chatter, some praising humanity, others calling them reckless monsters. Ambassador Throken raised his crystalline limbs for silence. Captain Webb, why risk your lives for strangers? A question the captain had been silently asking himself. He thought of Earth. Fragile yet stubborn children, playing under skies filled with human history, carved from struggle. We're here, Webb said softly. Because survival isn't meant to be solitary. Alina glanced at him, admiration flickering behind her exhaustion. And because, Webb added, with quiet conviction, somewhere out there, someone wants us to live. We're not wasting that gift. A murmur rippled through the council, confusion mixed with wonder. None of their species believed in anything beyond logic. Yet, Webb spoke as if he knew, not by proof, by experience. Zor's mandibles clacked. Your weapons. Outdated kinetic objects. Your ships. Primitive metal. And yet you injure the swarm. Webb nodded. They adapt to plasma. They can't absorb steel moving like a meteor. Council officers downloaded the combat logs. Their shock became respect, but Webb didn't let them bask in hope. Your strategy relies on retreating, he observed. It's why you're losing. The chamber froze. You cannot fight them like targets, Webb continued. Take the fight to them. Force them to react. Throke and his hues dimmed, that is. Not our nature. Webb clenched a fist. Then learn. Or get ready to be devoured. We'll lead the charge you support. Together, we're not prey. We're predators. Silence. The insectoid commander bowed his head. Deathworld or Webb, lead us. As the feed ended, Alina collapsed into her seat, breath unsteady. You okay? Webb asked. She nodded. Ravagers killed friends today. I'm trying not to think about it. Webb knelt, not touching her, just present. I wish I could promise you safety, he admitted. But I can promise we don't let their sacrifices be wasted. She stared into his eyes, searching, finding steadiness. Captain, she whispered, you make it easier to believe. We can win. Faith wasn't always saints and temples. Sometimes it was a terrified person believing in another. Terrified person. Webb stood, offering her a sharp nod. We win because we get back up, he said. And because we're not alone. Not anymore. Alert klaxons blared. Ravagers incoming in formation. Miller yelled. They're not rushing this time. Of course not, Webb muttered. They learned. He straightened, voice rising. All ships battle plan, burning halo. Council vessels paused. Sure, but human ships moved instantly. They formed a ring around the alien fleet, shields outward, guns inward, a fortress protecting the fragile. Council crews stared in disbelief. Humans became the shield. Alina tightened her headset. Captain. They're watching us like we're their hope, they should, Webb said. We're humanity. He raised his voice to the fleet. Deathworlders, show them why we were made tough. The void answered with thunder. Railguns glowed. Missiles primed. Humanity roared back into battle and deep in the swarm. A new Ravager Queen turned her gaze toward one man. The Deathworld captain, who refused to die. The swarm approached like nightfall, thousands of biological vessels shrinking the stars behind them. Inside the vanguard, every human held their breath as weapons warmed to a low hum. Captain Webb stood centered on the bridge, posture unbreaking despite the weight pressing on his chest. He had never led anything like this. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for species he had known all of 3 days. Targets locked, Alina said, her voice low and razor steady. She didn't hide her fear. She mastered it. That's it, Webb murmured, barely audible. Be afraid. But stand, Miller's voice crackled through internal cums, excitement masking terror. Captain, the boys downstairs are ready to make history. Webb gave the order. Open fire. Human council formation unleashed absolute fury. Railguns fired in synchronized rhythm. Nuclear lances streaked outward like falling stars. Council ships channeled energy beams through carefully timed windows. Humans created, and for a moment, just a moment, victory felt almost simple. Ravager. Ships burst apart in volcanic blooms of ichor. Their living hulls couldn't withstand hyperdense metal ripping through them. The battle lit up the system with lethal brilliance. Cheers started to build until the universe itself seemed to growl back. The swarm didn't scatter. It adapted. Larger Ravager forms surged forward, absorbing projectiles with grotesque bodies that hardened upon impact. Their armor mutated in seconds, becoming chitinous plating like obsidian shields. "They're learning mid-battle," Alina whispered. "Changing their biology in real time?" Spine-chilling roar crackled through every speaker, yet no channel was open. A message. A voice scraped by hunger. Death. World. Flesh. The bridge temperature seemed to drop. Webb's jaw clenched. Helm. Evasive pattern. A colossal shadow slammed into the outer defensive ring, crushing 2 human destroyers like tin cans. Alarms blared. The ship shook so hard Alina grabbed her console to stay standing. Status. Webb barked. Shields at 42%. Propping fast. The tactical officer yelled. More Ravagers broke through missiles, failing to pierce their newly hardened hides. Webb scanned the chaos, looking for a crack, pattern dash, anything there. Their adapting armor made them slower to maneuver. Alina transmit targeting adjustments. Aim for joint size ventral tissue. She already had it cued. Broadcasting now. The change was immediate. Rail fire shredded limbs. Missiles tore open softer underplates. The council vessels followed suit copying. Human targeting with newfound confidence. The battle turned again. For a second time, hope returned, then a soft tremor one. Only Webb seemed to feel ran through him, as if something beyond the hull was staring back. The holographic, tactical projection flickered into face. Formed out of streaming Ravager signals, not a creature. A mind, sharp black eyes, mandibles glistening. A crown of writhing tendrils, the queen, her voice smooth and vile, slithered into every ear. "You, Captain, you fight like prey refusing your death. We hunger for your kind." Lena's breath hitched. The queen's attention wasn't on humanity. It was locked on Marcus Webb. "We will take you last, Deathworlder, to learn why you think. Someone protects you." The feed cut. Alina stepped closer, thinking, instinctive, but stopped herself before touching him. Her voice was small, but unwavering. "She fears you." "No." Webb's eyes hardened. "She covets us." Another impact closer, louder. They were breaching again. Webb steadied himself. The fear, the responsibility, the impossible odds, all of it, threatened to crush him. He forced a single breath. "Not today." Alina met his gaze. "He didn't need to speak the rest. Not while I'm alive." She nodded and turned back to her station. Fire in her veins. A new alarm shrieked. A Ravager. Titan twice the size of any before was charging straight for the vanguard. And this time it wasn't alone. One queen. One target. One mistake. She chose a human. The Ravager Titan charged like a living asteroid, ripping through debris and firing organic spines as long as starfighters. The vanguard lurched hard to port as Webb shouted orders. All power to forward shields. Helm, roll us under its trajectory now. Thrusters roared. Metal screamed. The Titans scraped across their upper hull, leaving a trail of molten armor and shattered antenna arrays. Shields down to 18%. Tactical reported. "We can't take another hit like that." Elena's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Captain, we're being targeted by 4 more dread forms, converging." The swarm wanted the vanguard specifically. "The Queen wanted him, sir," Miller radioed from the hangar deck. "We've got boarding claws digging into the hole again." "Heavy units? This time?" Webb clenched his jaw so tight his teeth hurt. "We hold this ship," he growled, "or we die with it." He looked around the bridge. pale faces. Shaking hands, yet not a single person breaking. Fear didn't rule them. Faith did in something greater than themselves. "And in each other, Alina?" he said, stepping closer to her station. "Options." Her eyes flicked through screens. Calculations spinning behind them faster than her fingers could move. "We need to break their targeting lock on us," she whispered. "If I splice the cum frequency into their bio-network, maybe I can overload their sensory nodes. Blind them." Webb blinked. "That sounds like a miracle." She gave a tight, nervous smile. "I believe in those." "Sometimes." He nodded once. Approval. Trust. But she continued, breath-catching. "If the signal backfires, it could fry every system on our ship, including life support." Silence. Only the rumble of death approaching. Webb leaned closer, not touching her, but letting her feel his resolve. "Do it." She swallowed, then got to work. Head bowed as though in prayer, the Ravager Titan spun around for another pass, claws opening like the jaws of a planet-eater. "Captain," Helm yelled. "Impact in 12 seconds." Webb stood tall at the center of the bridge, shoulders squared as though he could hold the universe at bay by will alone. "Fire everything we have left," he ordered. Missiles streaked out. Railguns thundered. Energy beams from council ships lashed across the beast's armor. The Titan wavered, limbs torn, but still kept coming. 10 seconds. 8. 6. "Alina," Webb asked quietly, almost. She slammed a final command. "Sending now." The screens flared, blinding white. Sparks erupted from consoles. Bridge crew shielded their eyes, then silence. The Titan stopped mid-strike, thrashing blindly. The dread forms behind it spun like panicked sharks, colliding into each other. Chaos ripped through the swarm. "It worked," Alina breathed. "We overloaded their senses." Relief washed through the bridge, shaky, disbelieving. A few Marines crossed themselves. Webb allowed a single second of gratitude, directed upward. Not luck, he thought. Someone wanted this. The Council fleet seized the moment, charging forward with newfound fury, lasers and plasma raining judgment across Ravager lines. But humans did not cheer yet. Webb watched the tactical screen. The swarm wasn't retreating, it was reforming. New signal pulsed through the void, colder and sharper than before. A heartbeat of the hive. Elena's console flashed with an incoming message. Adaptation complete. Deathworld prey identified. New objective. Take the captain. Every Ravager ship turned toward the vanguard. Webb felt Elena's breath catch beside him. He didn't look away from the void. "Looks like I made an impression," he said dryly. Elena's voice trembled. "You're not facing them alone." He finally allowed himself a faint, grim smile, "I know. Because someone was watching over them. And because millions of lives stood behind. Him he couldn't break. He wouldn't break as the swarm surged like an ocean of nightmares." Webb lifted his chin. "All ships," he said calmly. "We're not done. The Queen is done experimenting. She's coming to claim him herself." The Vanguard barely had time to breathe. The Ravagers, now focused solely on the captain, launched their next strike with cruel precision. Multiple boarding claws incoming. Miller shouted over comms. "Bigger than anything we've seen?" The ship shuddered as biological spears punctured the outer hull like knives through paper. Acidic resin, melted steel, carving tunnels inward. From those tunnels came the sound, not roars. Not Screech's footsteps. Heavy, coordinated, intelligent. "Elite units," Webb muttered. "She's sending her best." He grabbed his rifle and turned toward Alina. She was already out of her seat, weapon drawn. Fear shimmered behind her eyes, but her stance was steady. "You're staying here," he ordered. "I'm not leaving this bridge." "Alina, you told me we face this together," she said. "Don't make me a liar now." He held her gaze. Saw not fragility but fire. He gave a tight nod. "Right, together." Miller arrived with a Marine fire team and tossed Webb a reinforced combat helmet. "Captain, VIP escort detail for you. Webb strapped it on. Then stay close. No heroics. You're the hero today, sir. Miller smirked grimly. We're just trying not to die in your story. The bridge doors sealed, Marines forming a perimeter. The footsteps grew louder. A deafening crash metal peeled inward. A Ravager warrior stepped through, towering, armored in obsidian plates grown like bone. Its head split open like a blooming nightmare, revealing rows upon rows of glistening teeth. More followed, elite strain confirmed. Alina whispered. Webb didn't wait. Contact. Gunfire erupted. Marines unloaded everything they had. Sparks and blood-like ichor sprayed across the bridge. Webb fired in precise bursts, targeting joints and sensory pits. The first elite dropped. The second charged straight for Webb. Miller dove, shoving Webb aside, taking the brunt of the impact. The Ravager's claws sank into armor. Miller screamed, firing point-blank into its skull until the beast collapsed. Miller. Webb knelt beside him. I'm Hoffin, Miller grunted, blood pooling under his armor. Keep killing. Sir? Webb squeezed his shoulder once before rising. Another elite slammed into a console where Elena had stood seconds earlier. It snapped at empty space. She had slid beneath a railing. Firing upward into its mouth until its body convulsed and fell, she scrambled up, breath ragged. Webb turned, eyes wide. You okay? Still here, she said through clenched teeth, then added softer. Thanks to you. A new sound filled the bridge. Not footsteps, a voice. Break their hope. The remaining elites surged forward with terrifying intent, no longer attacking randomly. They hunted a path. Straight toward Webb, Elena. Behind me. He barked. She didn't argue, moving close as the Marines tightened formation around their captain. Bullets shredded the air. Webb fought with vicious efficiency knife when ammo ran dry, a strength when no weapon was left. A claw slashed across his armor. Tearing into his side, pain exploded white-hot. He stumbled. Captain. Alina grabbed his arm, holding him up with more strength than she should have had. Her voice cracked. Don't you fall now? Don't you dare! He tasted blood. Vision blurred. A Ravager lunged and suddenly it stopped. A small metal charm hung from Webb's neck, his sister's gift, reflecting a distant star's light. The glare caught the beast's eyes, disorienting it for the briefest heartbeat. Not luck. Not chance. Webb felt it in his bones. Someone wanted him to live. He roared, driving his blade through the creature's skull. The final elite fell. Silence. Shaking. Webb stayed on his feet only because Lena wouldn't let him fall. Her forehead rested against his helmet, for the tiniest moment, breath warm. Grounding him. You're alive, she whispered like a prayer. For now. Breathe back. Then the tactical alarms flared again, worse than before. Alina checked the screen, face draining of color. The Queen, she whispered. She's boarding us herself. Oh, the Queen is coming face to face with the one human she cannot understand, the one she refuses to let die. The lights flickered, then steadied. Dimmer! Systems were failing one deck at a time, yet the ship held its breath in eerie quiet. Alina checked diagnostics with trembling fingers. Power drain everywhere at once. Captain? She's here. As if summoned by the word, the temperature dropped. Frost crystallized along bulkheads. The air thickened like they were breathing inside a nightmare. A woman's scream burst over comms. Miller raised his rifle. Security feeds got visual. Screens change, showing a corridor filling with a creeping shadow. Not darkness, a presence. Then she stepped forward. The Ravager Queen, her form towered, part blade, part hatred. A crown of living tendrils crowned her skull, shifting like serpents. Her eyes glowed with a cruel intelligence that made Webb's blood run cold, and as she moved, metal. Rotted Webb stared, pulse hammering. All hands fall back to Bridge Bravo. Lock bulkheads. But the Queen wasn't chasing the retreating crew. She was following a Sentim. She turned her face toward a Camarda ward, Webb-like she could smell his fear through the screen. Her voice slithered into the bridge like smoke. Faithful. Stubborn. Made to kill. Alina swallowed hard. She knows your name. Of course she does, Webb muttered. This wasn't an attack. It was a hunt. Alina stepped closer, matching his stare toward the screen. Then she hunted the wrong man. A deafening, metallic boom rocked the deck. The main bridge doors dented inward 1 strike. 2. The frame buckled. Miller cursed. We can't hold this. Webb tightened his grip on his rifle. If she wants me, then I will give her a fight she'll never forget. He stepped forward. Alina grabbed his arm fingers, trembling. Don't, she whispered. He met her eye-seeing fear. Not for herself, but for him. I won't let her take you, she said. Voice cracking, his breath caught. No time for softness? He shook his head once. If the queen reaches the bridge, everyone dies. If I leave, you live? She didn't loosen her grip. Her eyes shimmered with the truth neither of them dared acknowledge before now. You think you're alone in this? She whispered. You're not. For 1 suspended second, Webb believed her. Then the bridge doors exploded inward. The queen stepped through the smoke, every movement elegant and lethal. Marines fired bullets evaporated inches from her flesh. She raised a claw. Miller was flung into a wall like a rag doll. Then her gaze locked on Webb. Come. Webb stood firm. Until Alina shoved him backward. The emergency bulkhead slammed down between them with a final echoing. Boom. Alina had hit the manual override. Webb's scream was pure fury. Alina? No. But she was already on the other side alone with the monster. She pointed her pistol at the queen, hands shaking. You can't have him, she said, voice breaking but unyielding. The queen paused. Amused, you think he belongs to you? Little prey. Alina didn't blink. I think he belongs. To someone who wants him alive. Queen's face contorted recognition. Rage. She surged forward. Webb slammed his fists against the sealed door, raw panic ripping through him. Alina, move. Gunfire erupted. A scream and the feed cut to static. No, no, no. Webb backed away, eyes wild, refusing to accept what he saw. A nearby whisper of dust drifted down. As if the ship itself mourned, Miller crawled to his feet, bleeding grim. Captain Orders. Webb stared at the dead console. His throat felt like fire. Orders. There was only one. We get her back. He turned toward the lower decks, toward hell itself, and we kill that queen, separated by steel and death, but not forsaken. The corridors below the bridge glistened with ravager. Resin, a biomechanical infection spreading through steel. Webb led the charge, Marines tight behind him, lights carving through choking darkness. Stay sharp, Webb warned, voice low. If any of you see her shoot first, pray later. The Marines exchanged tense looks. Her, they all knew, meant the queen. Miller limped, but refused to fall back. We'll get Ruiz, sir, he said. That girl's too stubborn to die for real. Webb didn't respond. His jaw was locked to hide the truth clawing inside, the terror of losing her. He had no right to feel connected. And yet he did. In the darkest moments, she made him believe survival wasn't just instinct, it was purpose. A hiss echoed from above. The Marines flicked rifles upward, beams catching a Ravager warrior. Clinging to the ceiling like a nightmare waiting to drop, Webb fired first. Skull shattering, black ichor raining down, more skittering followed. Too many. Webb signaled silently. They formed a defensive circle. Warriors pounced, teeth snapping, claws slashing. A Marine fell, throat torn. Another was dragged screaming into the dark. Webb fought like a force of nature, no fear, no hesitation. He rammed his rifle through a Ravager's chest. Firing until the magazine clicked empty, he drew his knife when another lunged. It knocked the blade from his hand. Webb grabbed its mandible with bare hands, every muscle burning. The creature shrieked inches from his face. Bang! Its skull vaporized. Webb gasped as the corpse slumped. Miller lowered his rifle. I told you, Captain. Not dying today. They pressed on. A distant glow flickered down the hall, a pulsing organic light. A heartbeat. A trap. They approached slowly, weapons ready. Then Webb saw it, Elena's headset lying on the floor, cracked but not destroyed. Beside it, drag marks smeared in black ichor. Not human blood. She had fought. She had made them bleed, Miller whispered, hope rising. She's alive. Webb crouched, picking up the headset gently, thumb grazing a dent he recognized from her nervous fidgeting. A tremor passed through him, a silent thanks upward. Not luck guidance, ... sir. Miller pointed ahead. A towering chamber opened before them filled with biotech structures, like rib cages rising from the floor. Hanging from one was a human marine, cocooned, breathing shallow. Others lingered nearby, unconscious. The ravagers didn't consume immediately. They studied their prey. If Elena was taken, she wasn't dead. Yet Webb cut the marine free. The man coughed violently, eyes wide with terror. She? The queen. She took Ruiz deeper. Wanted her as bait. Webb's fist clenched so hard his gloves creaked. The queen wanted him to follow. She thought he would break. She hadn't met Marcus Webb. We're saving every one of them, he stated. Miller nodded. And then we kill her. As if summoned, a chilling voice drifted from below, echoing through vents. Webb, come and claim what you think is yours. The floor vibrated, a rising rumble like a beast waking lights shattered overhead. Resin tendrils burst from the walls, dividing the Marines. Webb and Miller were shoved forward, separated from their own team. Miller shouted, "Go!" "Take her back, sir." Webb hesitated, loyalty pulling, fear clawing, but he moved. He ran, down into the infected decks. Down into the Queen's labyrinth. Down into the heart of darkness. Every step whispered a single truth. Elena was alive. He would not fail her. The deck beneath him shook again.
Oh.
Something enormous shifting below. The Queen wasn't hiding. She was welcoming him. One man, one queen, one war decided in the dark. Webb descended a maintenance shaft that had become something else entirely. Steel ribs warped into organic archways. Lights devoured by crawling resin. The air grew hot, humid, and thick with the stench of alien breath. Steps behind him, Miller. Limping, but relentless. "You should have stayed with the others," Webb muttered. "And let you do something stupid alone?" Miller grimaced. No chance. Webb didn't argue. He needed backup, and Miller's stubborn courage was a lifeline. A whisper curled through the corridor, closer. The Queen's voice slithered into bones. The walls pulsed with her heartbeat. The ship was no longer their own. They entered a vast chamber lit by sickly green biolanterns. Tendrils weaved into the structure like veins. In the center, a grotesque throne of fused bodies, alien and human, still breathing faintly. Webb's stomach knotted. The Ravagers didn't kill quickly. They kept what they consumed. Miller gagged. "Monsters." "No," Webb growled. "Predators. And predators bleed." Movement flickered. Warriors peeled from walls like living statues, surrounding Webb and Miller in a tightening circle. Webb lifted his rifle and stopped. No shots fired. The Queen wanted him alive, wanted him to see. To fear, a section of the wall opened like a wound, and Elena stumbled into view. She was bound by resin shackles, cuts lining her face. But she was upright, alive, eyes blazing. Webb stepped forward instinctively. Elena shook her head urgently. Voice hoarse, "Webb, don't, she's too late." The Queen emerged from the dark, towering, radiant with malevolence. Mandibles dripping venom, crown of tendrils trembling with rage. She circled Webb like a beast, savoring its kill. "You fight for her." One claw traced Elena's cheek, mockingly gentle. Webb's vision reddened. Why? She is weak, fragile, fleeting. Miller raised his rifle, teeth bared. "Back off." The Queen flicked a tendril. Miller's gun exploded from his hands, sending him crashing into a pillar. He groaned, dazed but alive. The queen leaned close to Webb, breath cold as a void. Your kind prays to the sky, but you bleed all the same. Webb stared right into her abyssal eyes and replied quietly, We pray because we bleed. She recoiled slightly. Confusion. Anger? Both. Faith is a flaw. Faith, Webb answered, is a weapon, the queen hissed, mandibles snapping in fury. She lunged. Webb grabbed a discarded plasma blade from the throne. Its severed power cell sparked, but still hummed faintly. He swung upward, slicing across the queen's forearm. Black ichor sprayed, sizzling on the ground. She roared, an earthquake of rage. Warriors surged forward. Webb was thrown against the throne, breath knocked out. Claws tore at him, armor ripping, pain exploding. Alina screamed, fighting her bindings. Marcus. His name, his first name, ripped something open inside him. Miller staggered to his feet, dragging himself between Webb and the incoming claws. You're not taking him. The elite warrior speared Miller's side with a scythe limb. Miller gasped, but kept pushing, forcing the creature back by sheer will. Miller. Webb shouted. His friend grinned weakly through blood. Told you? Not dying yet. The queen's shadow blotted out the light as she raised a jagged claw for the killing strike. Webb braced breath. Shaking, not ready to die, but accepting he might, and then a section of the ceiling collapsed. Beams of reinforced steel crashing down, crushing warriors beneath. Dust and sparks filled the air. Through the debris human marines poured in. Screaming battle cries, rifles blazing, council soldiers followed. Energy shields raised. Reinforcements. Hope. Miller laughed, broken, triumphant. They heard us. The queen screeched, a sound of pure hatred. Her forces swarmed, fighting to cut off the rescue. She retreated deeper, dragging Alina with her as a living shield. If you want her, follow. Then darkness devoured them both. The chamber shook violently as if the ship itself was breaking apart. Webb pushed to his feet. Battered but alive, eyes burning with vengeance. He turned to the Marines. Voice raw. We're not losing her. Move. He sprinted after the queen, heart pounding. Fury and faith merging into a single force. Alina wasn't lost. Not while Marcus Webb still breathed. The queen has one hostage. Webb has an army. Hell is about to get a counterattack. Webb sprinted through the collapsing corridor. Boots splashing through pools of dark ichor. Marines pushed in behind him, covering angles, firing bursts into shadows that writhed and whispered, Alina. He called, voice hoarse. No response, just distant Ravager screeches. Miller limped at Webb's side despite medics begging him to fall back. I'm with you, sir, he grunted. Queen's not keeping anyone today. Webb clamped a hand on Miller's shoulder, brief but firm, then pressed onward. The passage sloped downward. Heat intensifying. A vibration thrummed through the deck, a deep, rhythmic pulse. Captain, a Marine said, we're heading toward the reactor levels. Webb's stomach dropped. Smart tactic. Ruthless tactic. She wants leverage, he growled. If she can't take us alive, she'll take us all at once. A low rumble echoed. From behind, steel plates welded shut, resin spreading over them, sealing the escape route. No turning back now. Ahead, a massive circular door pulsed like a beating heart. A biomechanical lock fused into the ship's structure. Miller cursed softly. She's nesting in our core. Webb stepped forward, breath steady. Then we rip her nest apart. He placed a hand on the abnormal door. It twitched, opening like a monstrous iris. Light poured out orange glow of molten coolant, mixing with sickly green bioluminescence. The cavernous chamber inside was a hell of twisted structure and exposed reactor conduits, and there, suspended by shifting tendrils, was Alina alive, her wrists bound above her head, ankles trapped. Her eyes widened when she saw Webb. Marcus, she choked out. Get back! A claw slammed the floor between them. Queen rising from the shadows like a nightmare given purpose. You bring soldiers. I bring the end. at her command. Ravager elite units crawled along the walls and ceiling, dozens of them encircling the humans. Miller raised his rifle. We've survived worse. Right, boss? Webb didn't blink. Much worse. He lifted his plasma blade in one hand, rifle in the other. Every inch of him, a man who refused to kneel. The Queen's mandibles clicked in fury. Why do you not break? Webb met her burning gaze. Because someone didn't put us in this universe to die crawling. That line made her recoil again, fear disguised as rage. Your faith is delusion. No, Webb answered. It's direction. Lena's eyes shone. Hope returning like a flame. Everything erupted at once. Marines opened fire. Bullets tearing through the first wave of elites, Webb charged. A battle cry ripping from his chest, blade humming with unstable energy. He rammed it into a Ravager's throat, firing point-blank into another dot. Two more pounced, claws sinking into his armor. Miller tackled one off him, knife plunging repeatedly into its neck. Go. Miller yelled, voice breaking. She needs you. Webb didn't hesitate. He fought through claws and teeth, each step forcing death backward. His arms numbed, lungs burned, but something deeper drove him. Something greater. He reached Elena, slicing the tendrils that held her. She collapsed into his arms, trembling. You came, she whispered. Forehead pressed to his chest. Always, he breathed. Not a promise, a truth. He lifted her up just as the Queen shrieked. He is mine. She lunged faster than thought. A Marine shoved Webb and Elena aside, taking the strike meant for them. He died without a sound, sacrifice echoing like a bell. Elena looked up at Webb, eyes wet. Voice shaking, he believed in you. Webb set her on her feet. Turning to face the Queen, pain and purpose forging into something unstoppable. He's not the only one. Behind him, despite wounds, fear and the crushing odds, Miller stood. Bloody but unbroken, rallying the Marines, deathworlders. Show these monsters what survival looks like. The Queen charged again. Webb charged faster. One will rise. One will fall. And the universe will remember the moment a human chose defiance over death. Steel collapsed under monstrous force as Webb and the Queen collided at the center of the reactor chamber. Her claws smashed into the deck, sparks exploding. Webb rolled away just in time, plasma blade whistling past her throat. She retaliated with a swipe that would have torn him in half if Miller hadn't fired a precise burst into her shoulder. Staggering, the beast Elena, though shaken and wounded, crawled toward a fallen Marine's weapon. Marcus, cover me. Webb understood instantly. He ducked under a snapping mandible and slammed his shoulder into the Queen's abdomen. She barely moved, but it gave Elena seconds. The Queen's voice vibrated through the ship. Fragile, finite, yet you resist your extinction. Webb snarled and drove his blade into her side. Black ichor gushed, sizzling on the metal. The Queen shrieked anger, not pain. You fight for a female. A weakness I will rip apart. Webb twisted the blade harder. You don't understand humans at all. He wrenched free, dodging a scythe limb. We don't fight because we're fearless. We fight because someone needs us to. Miller laughed breathlessly while reloading. He's preaching now. Must be serious. Elena managed to fire 3 precise shots into exposed joints along the Queen's leg. The creature stumbled. Surprised humans had found new vulnerabilities in seconds. But the Queen adapted instantly, flesh hardening like stone over the wounds. Damn, Elena hissed. She's learning faster. The Queen lunged again. Webb barely sidestepped, her claws tearing through a reactor conduit. Alarms blared. Hot air surged. Coolant sprayed like steam from a dragon's breath. A single misstep could trigger a meltdown. Webb's chest heaved, sweat and blood clouding his eyes. Hey. Ravager warrior broke through the defense line, leaping straight for Elena. Webb saw it, but he was too far. Elena. She looked up in the glare of the oncoming claws. A single heartbeat, and then Miller intercepted, laming himself between Elena and death. The claws pierced him clean through. No. Webb roared, voice breaking. Miller, blood filling his lungs, looked at Webb, a laugh choking out. Told you? not dying before you do. He fired his last burst point blank into the warrior's skull. Both fell. Alina screamed his name, crawling toward him, but Webb grabbed her, pulling her back. "Alina, look at me." His voice shook. "He saved you. Don't waste it." Her tears cut rivers through grime. She nodded, a heartbeat of shared agony, and steadied her grip on her rifle. The queen watched with twisted fascination. Why mourn the dead? They are meat now. Webb stepped forward, blade blazing brighter from reactor heat. "We mourn," he said softly, "because we love." The queen recoiled at that word, confusion again flashing like weakness. Love. Useless emotion. Alina, voice hoarse and fierce. "It's why we aren't extinct." Webb attacked every strike driven by the memory of fallen men, by the stubborn spark of hope, by a belief the queen couldn't comprehend. He cut deeper than before. Her armor shattered in streaks of black dot. This time she screamed in pain. For the first time, she bled like prey. Impossible. She snarled. Webb breathed like fire. "You underestimate what humans are." He swung again. She blocked, but barely. Behind him, Marines lifted their weapons with renewed fury. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was vengeance. It was love. It was faith that sacrifice meant something. "Captain," Alina whispered, "don't die." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His answer was every step he took toward the monster trying to end humanity. One more cut. One more breath. One more miracle needed. The reactor chamber trembled like the heart of a dying star. Sparks spit from ruptured conduits, each explosion lighting the battlefield in flashes of orange and sickly green. The heat was suffocating. Every breath tasted like metal and ash. Webb circled the queen, blade crackling with unstable energy. She tracked him with those abyssal eyes, no longer amused, no longer curious. "Threatened. You bleed, Captain. You break. You should fall." He spit blood and wiped his mouth with the back of his armored glove. And yet he rasped. "I'm still here." Lena steadied herself beside a pillar, rifle aimed at the queen's exposed joints. One shot at a time, every bullet where it hurt most. She fought through the shaking, through the tears, through the terror. Because he was still standing, Marines behind her shouted status updates. Charges set. Evac route secured. "Captain ready? On your mark?" Webb didn't look away from the Queen. "Alina, what did you do?" She forced a breath. "If we detonate the coolant reserves beneath her, we can drown the chamber in cryofrost. Freeze her. Break her." Webb's pulse kicked. "Smart, risky, terrifying, and us." She swallowed. "We run faster." The Queen laughed a low, reverberating hell sound that shook dust from above. No more running. Her tendrils shot outward like spears. Webb dove, rolling behind a fallen beam. Alina ducked, firing blindly to suppress the attack. One tendril struck a Marine, lifting him screaming into the air before he was torn apart like a scrap of paper. Webb's rage snapped. He stood, pain forgotten. "You don't get to take anyone else," he growled. The Queen tilted her head, studying him. "Your fury tastes like purpose." She lunged. Webb leaped sideways as a claw slammed into the deck, leaving a crater where he'd stood. He retaliated with a thrust, his blade plunging into soft tissue at her throat, but then the hilt overheated. A sharp alarm blaring. Alina gasped. "Marcus, stop." "It's destabilizing," the Queen smiled. Webb realized too late. She wanted him close. The blade's energy cell exploded, hurling Webb across the chamber. His helmet cracked, dizzying stars filling his vision. He lay gasping, strength draining, limbs refusing commands. The Queen stalked toward him, each footstep a death sentence. "I will take your brain first. I must learn. What makes you disobey extinction?" Webb forced his arm to rise. It shook violently. He aimed a pistol, finger numb on the trigger. Click, empty. The Queen was right above him, now towering, triumphant. "Your god cannot hear you." Webb's breathing hitched. But he didn't lower his gaze. "He doesn't need to," he whispered. "He already sent someone." The Queen turned confused. just as Alina sprinted into view. She leaped onto a broken pipe, swung onto the queen's back, and jammed a live coolant charge directly into the exposed wound at her neck, detonating. She yelled. The queen shrieked, thrashing violently. Alina was thrown to fall into Webb's arms. He caught her tight against him, shielding her from debris. "Captain," a Marine yelled. "We gotta move." Webb dragged Alina to her feet. "Blow it," he roared. The Marines triggered the charges. A roar of impossible cold exploded upward white frost, engulfing the chamber. Ice spread like claws, swallowing structure. Bodies, monsters, and the queen her formed freezing mid-scream. The fortress of a monster became a brittle sculpture of hatred. The chamber fell. Quiet Webb and Alina collapsed behind a shielded alcove as frost dust settled around them. Webb held her shoulders, checking for wounds. "You okay?" She gave a breathless, trembling laugh. "Told you. I don't leave you." For the first time, Webb allowed himself a real breath, a real hope. They stood together, looking at the frozen terror before them. Miller would have loved this moment. The silence didn't. Last, a deep crack echoed. Another da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Frozen Queen's body twitched. Webb's blood ran cold. "No," he breathed. Alina grabbed his hand. The ice began to break. They slowed the queen, not stopped her. Round 2 begins. And this time, the universe isn't big enough for both. The ice cracked down the queen's spine like lightning splitting ancient stone. Webb yanked Alina behind a coolant pillar as shards erupted into the air. Marines raised rifles, trembling not from fear, but from the realization she wasn't dead. Far from it. The queen's frozen form shuddered, then flexed ice snapping off in chunks. Her once obsidian armor turned pale and glassy, adapting to survive the freeze. A second evolution. A nightmare refusing extinction. Miller, still alive but barely standing, stared in dread. "Captain, how do we kill something that changes every time we hurt it?" Webb forced his legs to move, planting himself between his people and the beast. One change at a time. The queen's new voice emerged. Sharper and colder than before, "You cannot erase evolution." She slammed a claw into the deck, ice exploding, bodies thrown. Webb shielded Alina as they crashed to the floor. His ribs screamed, might be broken, but he refused to stay down. "This ends here." Webb coughed, rising again. The queen tilted her head. "Intrigued, yes. You end here," she charged. Webb barely rolled aside. Her strike dented the deck where he had been. Alina, bruised but fierce, fired into newly exposed joints under the glossy armor. Bullets ricocheted, then one found a seam. The queen hissed, staggering back a step. Alina exhaled shakily. "She still feels pain," Goodweb grimly replied. "Let's give her more." Marines unleashed everything, grenades bouncing off, plasma blasts chipping away at icy plates, but the queen kept mutating faster than damage could stack. Then she did something terrifying. A tendril plunged into the deck, connecting with the reactor. Alarm shrieked. "Captain!"
Ow!
A Marine yelled, reactor temps spiking. "She's draining power." The queen's wounds began glowing, healing strength returning. If she fully tapped the core, the Vanguard would become a floating tomb. "We cut that connection," Webb ordered. He sprinted, ignoring the agony in his bones, leaping onto a scaffold closer to the queen's back. Alina followed, refusing to stay behind. "Webb," she called. "You're hurt, so are you." He shot back. "Doesn't mean we quit." It reached the tendril, pulsing with reactor energy. It hummed like a heartbeat of wrath. Webb jammed his knife into the base energy, lashing out, throwing him backward. "Marcus." Alina slid to his side, gripping his vest. He could barely breathe, but he wasn't done. "Alina," he wheezed. "There's something." Harder than faith. She frowned through tears, breathing hard. "What?" He forced himself upright again, meeting her eyes resolute, unshakable, acting on it. She stared, then lifted her rifle and fired into the tendril's core. Cracks spread like frost. The queen roared, lunging to protect the connection, but the Marines unleashed, covering fire, suppressing her. Webb clenched his knife, drove it deep again, and Alina fired another burst into the exposed weak point. With a blinding flash, the tendril severed. The queen screamed a sound that vibrated souls. Armor flickered unstable. Evolution interrupted mid-cycle. She stumbled for the first time afraid. Webb panted, barely conscious, but he stepped forward anyway. "You're not a god," he rasped. "Just a parasite." Her eyes blazed hate. "Human. You dare define me?" "No," Webb said. "We end you." Marines raised weapons. Alina stood at Webb's side, shoulder touching his. They steadied for a final strike and then reactor sirens wailed a new warning. Meltdown countdown initiated. Time, 6 minutes. The queen smiled. "Mandibles parting if I die. You die with me." Alina's heart froze. Webb clenched his fist. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a race against the end of everything. The queen wants mutual destruction. Webb wants a miracle. Only one of them is getting what they want. The red reactor lights strobed wildly, illuminating terror and resolve in equal measure. A synthesized voice spoke over the chaos cold. "Indifferent. Meltdown in 5:59. Evacuation advised." Advised as if survival were still optional. The queen dug her claws into the deck to steady herself. Injured but still towering in monstrous defiance. Her fractured armor oozed black venom that steamed on the floor. Extinction cannot be outrun. She'll see. Rooned. Webb gripped the railing to keep himself upright. Blood trickled into his eye from a cut in his brow, ribs aching with every breath. "We're not going anywhere," he said, voice low. Alina moved beside him, hand trembling as she reloaded. "We stop her first. Then we stop this meltdown." Miller coughed blood from where he was propped against a support beam. "Piece of cake." Webb crouched beside him for a moment. "You saved us. Rest now." Miller laughed weakly. "Captain, don't die dumb. That's an order." Webb stood, jaw tight-knot, allowing the moment to break him. The queen lunged faster than she had ever moved. Webb fired while diving aside, bullets slicing through cracks in her armor. Alina took cover behind a pipe, turning fire with surgical accuracy, but the queen wasn't trying to win the fight. She was trying to stall. Melt down. A marine shouted above the din. "We can't hold her and stabilize the core at the same time." "We don't need to hold her," Webb replied. "We need to push her." He pointed to a central coolant pitan, abyss of freezing chemical slurry swirling below a grated walkway. "If we force her into that, her body will shatter." Alina nodded. Reading his mind, "We bait her. Take out the railing." The queen seized a marine in her jaws, snapping his spine. She hurled the body aside and ripped through the defense line, shrieking triumph. Humanity breaks. Webb charged her head on. Not brave. Not reckless. Necessary. She struck Webb locked with a damaged shield plate. Impact nearly dislocating his shoulder. Alina fired at the rail supports. Cracks webbed across the metal. The queen whipped a tendril toward. Alina Webb intercepted, letting it pierce through the side of his armor. Pain ripped through him like fire. Alina screamed, "Marcus." He grinned through gritted teeth, face pale from blood loss. "I'm not done," he twisted, pinning the tendril against twisted metal. Holding the queen in place, Alina emptied her magazine into the final. Rail support crack-filmed walkway collapsed under the queen's mass. She fell, claws scraping metal, shrieking in disbelief, then plunged into the coolant pit. A detonation of frost and shuddering steel followed. The chamber shook violently. Alina sprinted to Webb as he collapsed to one knee. Breath ragged. "We did it," she gasped. The coolant churned violently, freezing over, then stopped. Completely. The queen's hand burst from the ice, grasping the ledge, reforming new armor already plating across her limbs. Evolution is eternal. Webb stared in disbelief. Even drowning her in frost wasn't enough. Alina grabbed Webb's arm, desperation flooding her voice. "Marcus, we have to leave." "You can't win." A growl resonated from deep in his chest. "Refusal. We're not letting her walk out of here." He looked at the Marines. They deserve to make it home. He turned back to the Queen. Unaware of the blood staining the deck beneath, him melt down in 209. There wasn't time to kill her and survive the explosion. Alina saw the plan forming behind his eyes, and it terrified her. Marcus. No, don't even think it. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. That thing dies tonight. She shook her head violently. I won't lose you. Not after everything. We don't get to choose the day we die, Webb whispered. But we choose what we die for. Her eyes filled with tears, not fragile, but furious. You don't die today, she said. I won't allow it. The Queen rose from the pit, monstrous and unstoppable. Webb lifted his final weapon. The reactor screamed, and somewhere deep in his soul, Webb felt it. Someone was still with him, someone who wasn't ready to let him go. Not yet. The Queen refuses to die. The reactor refuses to wait, and Webb refuses to surrender. The Queen climbed from the coolant pit like a nightmare reborn. Armored in jagged ice that reflected the reactor's hellish glow, her tendrils whipped outward. Tearing through steel and circuitry, melt down in 158, every heartbeat counted. Now Webb steadied himself on a railing, blood dripping freely from the wound in his side. Every breath was a knife, but Elena's hand tightened around his arm, anchoring him to life. Marcus, she whispered, please. He looked at her, really looked. Her eyes red from tears and smoke, cheeks streaked with coolant smears, trembling but unbroken. She wasn't afraid to die. She was afraid to lose him. He brushed a strand of hair from her face with a shaking glove. I'm right here, he said softly. A moment of impossible humanity. In the jaws of extinction, then, the Queen's voice split the silence. Surrender, Captain. Let me consume your will. Your species will live as I see fit. Webb's laugh was hoarse-dark. You don't get to rewrite humanity. He raised the last explosive charge on his Belta compact fusion destabilizer, blinking red. Elena's eyes widened. No, Marcus. If she takes another form, another evolution, she'll follow us forever. This ends with me, Miller shouted from behind a fallen girder, agony etched into his voice. Captain, don't. We didn't come this far to watch you kill yourself. Melt down in 125. The Queen sensed his intent and accelerated, legs tense to pounce. Alina stepped in front of Webb, arms, outstretched body trembling. You want him? She snarled, voice cracking. You go through me. Webb's heart stopped cold. Alana, move. She didn't. The Queen cocked her head, curious. You protect him. You love him, flawed, pointless. Elena's lip trembled, but her eyes were fire. It's the only thing you'll never evolve, she whispered. And that's why we win. Her defiance stunned the Queen for a precious moment. Webb seized it. He lunged out toward the Queen, but toward a set of glowing, pulsating glands along her spine, fresh, unarmored, vulnerable. He slammed the destabilizer deep into the exposed tissue. The Queen shrieked, sound of breaking stars. Webb stumbled away, falling to one knee. Alina caught him, arms around his shoulders. Marcus, we have to get out. He shook his head weakly. No time. Meltdown in 059. The chamber rumbled violently. Sparks shot like lightning. Ice shattered from the Queen's limbs as she roared. Trying to rip the device free, Marines rushed forward, dragging Miller and the wounded toward the evac lift. Alina held Webb's face in both hands, tears falling into his beard. We run, she insisted. We run together. His hand curled around hers, weak but present. Alina. If I don't, someone has to tell Earth no, she cried. You tell them yourself? For a moment, just a moment, Webb closed his eyes and breathed, and something flickered inside him. Not peace, not fear, a pull, like unseen hands pushing him toward life. Alina felt it too, her breath catching, as if the universe whispered, not yet. Webb's eyes shot open. Get everyone out, he rasped. I'll be right behind you. She searched his face, looking for a lie. There wasn't one. Alina nodded. Then move, soldier. She pulled him to his feet. dragging him with strength born from sheer refusal to lose him. Behind them, the Queen thrashed meltdown and 033 detonator irreversibly engaged. The ceiling buckled. The reactor screamed, and the Queen, impaled by Webb's will, roared her final challenge. Human you belong to. The destabilizer surged, cutting off her words in a flash of white fire. Webb and Alina sprinted toward the lift, limping, stumbling, fueled by something no ravager could consume: hope and a force far greater than evolution. As the reactor erupts, only a miracle stands between humanity and oblivion. Meltdown in 022. The warning echoed like a heartbeat at the edge of death. Webb and Alina stumbled through the collapsing corridor, each step a war against gravity and pain. The deck pitched sideways, the ship itself groaning like it wanted to tear apart. Ahead, Marines held the evac lift open, shouting, reaching, firing over the pair's shoulders to keep the Ravagers back. Move, Miller roared, blood running from his mouth. Don't make me come carry you. Alina clenched Webb's arm tighter. We're almost there. Stay with me. Webb's vision blurred, every breath wet and sharp. He forced his limbs forward because she was pulling, because others depended, because he was not done. Not yet. They crashed into the lift. Marines slammed the controls. The doors hissed shut as support beams fell behind them like guillotines. The lift whined upward. Sparks spit from cables. Alina held Webb's head against her shoulder, whispering, "Stay awake. Stay with me." He tried to smile, but tasted iron. "You, bossy." She let out a broken laugh, because the alternative was screaming. The lift shook violently. A Marine crossed himself, lips trembling. Webb noticed. And through the dizziness, he smiled inwardly. Humans always prayed hardest while climbing out of hell. Meltdown in 015. A tremor metal shrieked like a dying beast. The lift lurched, free-falling. Alina screamed, clutching Webb. They were dead. This was it. But the lift's emergency magnetic brakes slammed on, a brutal jolt, nearly dislocating shoulders. They hung there, suspended, teetering between survival and oblivion. Marines cheered shakily, but Webb heard something else, a faint, rhythmic pounding from below. He knew that sound. The Queen wasn't finished. Meltdown in 008. Top hatch, Webb barked. Climb. Marines launched into motion, forcing the hatch open, boosting the wounded through. Alina motioned for Webb to go first. He shook his head. You, then me. She stared at him, fear and trust colliding. She climbed, and he pushed from below. A Marine hauled her out. Webb reached for the hatch. Something grabbed his ankle, a talon, freezing cold. K. Impossibly strong. The Queen's voice rose from the burning depths. If I fall. You fall with me? His grip slipped. He was being pulled down back toward fire and darkness. Alina leaned over the hatch, arms stretched as far as it could reach. Marcus. She screamed, "Take my hand." Webb stared up, a moment stretching across eternity, her hand reaching through, smoke and starlight, terrified, certain. He didn't have faith in himself, but he had faith in her. He lunged, fingers brushing, skin clench. She had him. She would not let go. Alina screamed to the Marines, "Pull." Now they hauled together every muscle, every breath straining against the Queen's hate. Webb felt his armor tearing, flesh ripping, agony blazing. He didn't let go. Meltdown in 002. A thunderous FWOOM ripped through the lower decks, a shockwave of holy fire. The Queen's grip faltered, shriek, cut short. Webb shot upward into the waiting arms of his crew. Hatch slammed shut. The world below detonated, fire erupting like the wrath of a star. The lift shot upward, a rocket of shattered metal and human will, racing the explosion, clawing at its heels. Alina held Webb's face in shaking, blood-smeared hands, foreheads pressed together, breathing the same stunned breath. The ship around them shook, groaned. Then, fell eerily quiet. They had escaped death, but the cost. Webb's eyes fluttered and went dark. Elena's voice broke into a sob. Marcus. Marcus, don't. He saved everyone. Now someone must save him. Webb's world faded into cold silence. Not darkness, but silence. Like space itself held its breath. He floated, weightless memories and pain slipping from him like smoke. Voices echoed from somewhere far away. Alani, cover that artery. He's losing too much blood. We need a medbay now. Marcus, stay with me, please. Her voice. The only star in the void? He tried to follow it, but his body refused. For a moment, he wondered if this was the end. A quiet ending. A soft surrender. But then, another voice. Not human, not Ravager. Something older. Wait. Not yet. A warmth pulsed through Webb's chest, light blooming beneath torn armor. His fingers twitched. His eyes fluttered and reality slammed back. Pain, searing, honest pain. Webb gasped, lungs heaving. Elena nearly collapsed from relief, tears streaking down soot-stained cheeks. You're here, she breathed. You came back. He rasped out a slow, pained smile. Thought I'd check on the ship. Elena laughed through sobs, pressing her forehead against his. Miller's strained voice cut in. Can you two flirt after we survive the next 5 minutes? Elena wiped her cheeks, snapping into officer mode. What's our status? A medic responded as they loaded Webb into a portable stretcher. Queen's gone. Her biomass is vaporized. But the reactor containment is fried, and power is bleeding out. If the fire reaches the fuel cells, didn't finish. He didn't need to. Webb blinked through dizziness. Evacuate the fleet. A Marine leaned closer. Sir, they're already departing the system. Council ships too. We're the last ones left aboard. Webb stared hazily at cracked ceiling panels. Good. Means we can blame the paperwork on the AI. Even Miller huffed a broken laugh. The lift doors opened to a corridor filled with smoke, emergency lights painting everything crimson. Marines fired at straggler Ravagers still twitching. Through the halls, lesser organisms acting without their queen's mind. The Vanguard moaned as structural supports gave way, metal twisting under unbearable heat. A deep rumble boomed from below the engine core. Collapsing inward, the ship was dying. They rushed toward the hangar where escape craft waited, or they hoped. Alarms blared with every step. Webb's consciousness flickered again. Alina leaned over him. Hey, look at me. Don't drift. He tried. He truly did. But the pain dragged him down like gravity, Alina. He whispered faintly. She bent closer, ear near his lips. If I pass out, do the smart thing, he breathed. Leave me. Her hands tightened against his knuckles white. That's not funny, she said, voice trembling, and it's not happening. Alina, no. Wasn't a plea. It was a battle cry. You didn't give up on me. I won't give up on you. She brushed his cheek with her thumb, gentle amidst hell, and whatever held you alive down there. It wasn't done. Oh. Miller limped forward, covering the rear. You heard her, sir. God's your ex. Oh, now. Webb almost smiled, before the deck split open ahead, flames spewing upward like a demon's maw. Marines skidded to a halt. No route. We're cut off. The only way was across a fractured catwalk, half gone, suspended over a collapsing deck. Below. A drop into fire and steel, Webb forced himself upright, breath shaking. We'd jump, he rasped. Alina stared at him, disbelief and terror mixing. You can barely stand. He met her eyes, and for a moment she saw the soldier he was before the stars ever knew his name. We jump, he repeated. Voice ironed the hangar bay, and survival waited on the other side. Alina squeezed his hand. Together, they stepped to the edge. The ship roared beneath them. Heat surged up like a dragon's breath, and the floor gave way. Gravity. Fire. Fate. Only one will catch them. The catwalk crumbled under their boots, a groaning scream of metal giving way. Webb and Alina ran, lungs burning, every step threatening to be the last. Behind them, fire swallowed the corridor. Ahead, nothing but open air and a chasm of collapsing decks. Alanajam, Webb shouted. She looked terror flashing, but she didn't hesitate. She leaped across the void. Her fingertips caught the far ledge, slipped, then found grip again. Marines grabbed her arms, hauling her up. Marcus, your turn. He sprinted, every muscle betraying him, legs trembling beneath shredded armor. A chunk of deck exploded behind him, heat slamming against his back, propelling him forward. He leapt and fell short. His fingers clawed the ledge, slipping body dangling over roaring fire. Elena's scream cut through the chaos. Marcus. She hurled herself prone, reaching for him desperately. His hand found hers, slick with blood, grip failing. Don't you dare let go, she hissed, tears streaking ash from her cheeks. Webb grit his teeth. His arm felt like it was being ripped from its socket, but he looked right into her eyes. I'm trying. Oh. Metal snapped. The ledge crumbled outward, taking Webb with it. Elena screamed his name again, reaching over empty space. Then a hand caught Webb's forearm. Miller, barely conscious, barely alive, but refusing to let his captain fall. Get, he growled, voice thick with pain. Webb scrambled with what strength he had left as Elena and two Marines pulled, until finally he was rolled onto solid deck. He lay on his back, gasping, staring at the fractured ceiling. Elena collapsed beside him, forehead against his, shaking with relief. You idiot, she whispered. You absolute stubborn idiot. You huffed a weak laugh. Takes one to love one. She froze, breath stopping. He hadn't meant to say love, but he didn't take it back. He couldn't. The ship answered with another deafening explosion. Time was draining like blood. Miller stumbled, forcing himself upright. Romantic later, move now. Webb gripped Elena's hand. Go, he told her. I'll keep up. They ran again, limping, falling, rising, every second borrowed. Finally, the hangar doors came into view, half destroyed but still standing. Lights flashed erratically across rows of battered evacuation shuttles. Marines loaded wounded inside. Engines screamed to life. One shuttle remained with room for maybe 10 bodies. Get Webb in first, a medic yelled. Elena nodded, guiding him, until Webb stopped moving. He looked back. Miller wasn't running. He was leaning heavily against a wall, blood soaking his uniform, breath shallow. Too slow to survive this last stretch. Miller, Webb shouted, Come on. Miller shook his head weakly, attempting a grin. I'm at the end of my story, sir. No. Duh. Webb's voice broke into raw fury. You don't get to decide that. Miller gave him a look, sad, proud. Done. You already saved me once, Captain. That's plenty. The floor beneath him cracked, flames licking upward. Elena grabbed Webb's arm, voice trembling. We can't. We'll lose everyone, Marcus. The deck buckled. Miller fell to a knee. He saluted, hand trembling. Bring them home. That's an order. Then the platform dropped, taking him into fire. Miller. Webb's scream shook his soul. Elena pulled him into the shuttle as the hangar tore apart around them. The door slammed shut, and through the viewport Webb watched the Vanguard. The ship he had lived and fought for collapse into the explosion of its own heart. A star blooming in violent death, he felt. Lena's hand find his once more. He didn't pull away, but his eyes stayed closed, because he would never stop hearing that order. Bring them home. One ship dies. One heart breaks. The war is far from over. The shuttle shook violently as it cleared the blast radius. Fire chased them into space on, expanding inferno, where the Vanguard had once been. Marines braced against bulkheads, holding each other up through shock and heartbreak. Webb sat slumped, armor cracked and soaked in blood. Elena knelt in front of him, pressing bandages to his wounds with trembling hands. Easy, she whispered. We're safe now. Safe. The word felt wrong. Like a lie, because Miller wasn't here, because dozens of good people were now ashes scattered through the void. Webb didn't look at Elena. His eyes stared straight ahead, dry. EMPTYA medic moved closer. Captain, we need to sedate you. You're in shock. Webb grabbed the medic's wrist. Voice cold steel, don't. The medic stepped back, startled. Webb finally looked at Elena. and the pain in his gaze nearly knocked the breath from her lungs. "I left him," he said. "I left him to die." Alina shook her head, fierce like she could will his belief to change. "You saved him every second he fought beside you. He chose that end." Webb didn't respond. Because guilt is deaf to reason. A messy cough drew their attention, an older Marine leaning against the wall, one arm burnt to uselessness. "Sir, if Miller were here," he chuckled weakly, "he'd slap you for whining, then demand a medal for dying first." Ripple of exhausted laughter moved through the shuttle, the first spark of levity since the screams stopped. Alina took Webb's hand without hesitation. "You didn't drag us into hell," she said. "You let us out." Finally his shoulders loosened, a breath escaping his chest like the first sigh after drowning. He lifted her hand, holding it with intention this time. "Thank you," murmured. "For not letting go?" She leaned her forehead too. His never. The moment was fragile, beautiful, human, and then the shuttles comes. Crackled. "Attention, human forces," came a voice smooth and alien. "We have you on approach. You are cleared for landing." The Council flagship. The fleet had survived because humanity stood in front. But Webb wasn't ready to celebrate. A Marine looked out the viewport, jaw dropping. "Sir, the Council ships, they're saluting us." Webb blinked, dazed. Columns of battleships rotated to face the shuttle. Cannons aligned outward. Thousands of lights flashed in synchronized respect. A gesture reserved for fallen heroes. Someone whispered, "They think you died with the Vanguard." Webb swallowed hard, voice barely a breath. "I almost did," the pilot spoke up. "Captain, if you don't want the attention, I can tell them." But Webb forced himself upright, wounds screaming. "No, they need to see us. They need to know humans don't break." Elena helped him stand. She stayed at his side when the shuttle doors opened. The council deck was silent. Rows of alien officers, armored guardians, medics, diplomats all bowing their heads as Webb stepped out, not in pity. In respect, in awe, a towering insectoid commander stepped forward. His voice echoed, "Captain Webb, Deathworlder, savior of our fleet." He dropped to one knee. One by one, the entire council followed. Alina squeezed Webb's hand, voice breaking into a whisper only he could hear. "They're not afraid of you anymore." Webb stared out at the kneeling galaxy, no longer the outsider, no longer the primitive, no longer just a soldier. He was the reason they still breathed, the reason evil hadn't won, and deep inside him, a quiet understanding took root. Someone wanted him alive for more than just war. He looked into the stars burning. "Endless," ancient hand whispered. "Thank you." The galaxy kneels. But darkness rises elsewhere, and the war has only changed shape. Applause did not follow the bows. Silence did, a silence that held grief. And fear of what comes next? Webb stood supported only by will, Alina at his side like a pillar the universe forgot to break. Council medics approached, but he waved them off until he spoke. "How many ships survived?" Throken, the crystalline ambassador, stepped forward, voice edged with sorrow. "Humanity lost. Many, but without you, there would be no fleet left at all." Webb nodded once. Morning later. Strategy now. He forced his lungs to fill. The Queen is dead. But the swarm, a monitor flared to life above the deck, a star map choked with red marks. The swarm, Alina finished, is everywhere. Zor, the insectoid commander, chittered grimly, "You killed their queen. They will birth another." Webb's eyes narrowed. "Then we hunt the next one before she's crowned." Murmurs spread among the council. Fear, hope, change. Through. Kin shimmered with admiration. Humanity does not simply survive. It insists on meaning. Webb didn't feel like a symbol. He felt like a man held together by bandages, faith, and someone's hand in his still. He straightened his shoulders and faced the alien leaders. "You asked why humanity fights for others. Now you know. Because when we stand alone, we fall. When we stand together, we rise. Silence again. Then, for the first time in recorded galactic history, the council applauded a human. Hours later, the medbay hum filled the air. Webb lay on a recovery bed, armor gone, injuries wrapped and stinging with every heartbeat. Alina sat beside him, still refusing to leave. Her hand rested over his thumb, tracing circles unconsciously. "You should sleep," she whispered. "I will," he said. Soon, her gaze softened. "You scare me, you know that?" He chuckled, then winced. "I scare me too," she shook her head, exhaling a shaky smile. "No. It's that you'd die for anyone, even strangers. You believe? Someone wants you to live, so you fight for everyone else to live too." He looked at her, truly looked, and said quietly, "That's not what scares you." She blinked, surprised. "What scares you?" he continued, voice barely above a breath, "is that I'd die for you first." Her lips parted, breath caught. She didn't deny it. She couldn't, because it was true. She leaned closer, foreheads touching, just existing in the same fragile moment. "You're not allowed to die," she whispered. "Not while I'm still here." His hand rose, shaky but deliberate, resting against her cheek. "Then don't leave." "I won't," she promised. "Not even when you try to push me away." Something eased in his chest. Guilt, fear, loneliness, loosened by belief. Belief in someone. Belief from someone. The kind of belief evolution can't explain. The door hissed open. Zor approached, bowing in the human tradition he had studied only hours ago. "Captain Webb," he announced. "The council has voted unanimously." Webb and Alina exchanged a look cautious. Zor continued, "You will command the first United Resistance Fleet." Webb stared. Alina smiled, wide and proud. Zor added with reverence, "The galaxy follows you now." Webb didn't ask why. He knew humanity doesn't kneel to extinction. He looked to Alina, who squeezed his hand, grounding him. "Looks like we're not done," he murmured. She smirked softly. Was this ever going to end with us retiring quietly? He chuckled, despite the ache, and turned his eyes toward the endless stars outside. Once they felt cold. Now they felt like possibility, a battlefield, a promise, a calling. Webb didn't know what waited out there, but he knew he wouldn't face it alone. He whispered one last time, not to Alina, not to the fleet, but upward, "Guide me."